Welcome to the Christian Coach Podcast. Our mission is to serve coaches through conversation so they can lead like Jesus. I am Chad Simpson. I'm joined by my co-hosts Gian Lemmy and Jim Good. What's up, fellas?
What's
Hey,
up, Chad?
Hey, well, I don't know how much our listeners are enjoying these roundtable discussions, but I just have to say that I'm loving them. I'm learning every time we get the microphones out and record together. And so each month, first of the month, we've been just having a discussion, us three former coaches talking life, talking about Christ, and picking a topic. And so we went February, we talked relationships. March, we talked March Madness. Last month, we talked about productivity. And now, just to finish out the academic year, we're thinking about just missions. We have this every episode. We, in the same way, the mission field is right where you're at. And we all have had some pretty cool experiences with missions going out of the country. And so, yeah, we just thought we'll have a little discussion wrapped around missions here and missions abroad. But Gian, I'm gonna start with you. Can you just share what's your favorite, most memorable moment on a missions trip?
Yeah, so I have not gone on a international mission trip yet. But I am going this summer to Mozambique, right? So we'll be in the island of Mozambique, which is part of Mozambique. And we're going to be staying at they called it a posada, which is basically like a bed and breakfast. But they minister to the residents of Mozambique by employing them in this bed and breakfast. Mozambique is a big Muslim country. And so these Christian missionaries moved to Mozambique about 25 years ago. They've lived in the country for all that time, and then they decided to open up this business to minister to them through business. And so they employ these people, give them a living wage, and then as well as do some ministry with them. They've had a few recent converts to Christianity, and they still struggling to be role models to these people on how to be Christian families, right? Because they just became Christians. And so they're asking for families to travel to them and just do life alongside them. And then that's what we'll be doing for 10 days. We'll be going there, and our kids will be playing with their kids. And we'll be serving inside the bed and breakfast with them in the restaurant and the whatever they need, right, at the front desk, and then just do life with those Mozambicans there. And Mozambique speaks Portuguese, which makes it easier for me to communicate as well and connect.
That's awesome. And just to correct you with you being from Brazil, your whole life here in the States, you've been on a missions trip hanging out at Liberty for a good bit now. But I'll throw it to you. We got Jim with Nations of Coaches. Jim, what about you? Do you have a favorite memory?
Well, thank you, Chad. Before I start, I want to ask Gian. Our listeners are probably way more educated than myself, but where is Mozambique? What country? What continent? I have no idea, man. I'm acting like I know. I'm shaking my head. Oh yeah, Mozambique. There you go. Great job. Where are you going?
Mozambique is in the east side of Africa. If you look at the map, it's the closest country to Madagascar. So if you're looking at the map of Africa, Madagascar is an island off to the right side of the map. Yeah.
And of course you got kids. We know Madagascar. Yes.
Yeah. And so we I think we'll it takes about 2 days to get there. And so we just bought tickets. It's pretty far. And so it's a big adventure for us, a family of 4. We'll be going with 2 more families. So yeah, prayers needed just for safe travels there, and then be able to impact lives for the gospel while we were there.
Love it. Love that you get to do that time with your wife and kids. It's going to be special. I know we're praying through your fundraising and all those efforts as well. Chad, I love the subject. Love that we're dedicating this month to missions. It's special to me and my family. I guess for me personally, I've had the opportunity to be on about 5 or 6 missions trips, and 4 of them were out of the country, and then 2 of them local in the States. But my very first missions trip was way back in 1999. Okay, so you guys laugh about my age. I see the smiles coming, but I was
in middle school.
There you go, middle school. Yes, way to make me feel real good. So my wife and I celebrated 1 year. We got married, and then the next year I had the opportunity to go to Budapest, Hungary.
Nice.
And so I traveled with Score International, and back then I could still play a little basketball. So I was part of a team with some college-age kids, and we would go around different cities and use the platform of basketball. We were in 3-on-3 tournaments, 5-on-5. And then at halftime, I was the, I guess, older, more mature. I was the Udonis Haslem of the Miami Heat these days. So I was the old guy. And so I was the spokesperson sharing a devotion challenge, what we did. And that was awesome, just to kind of really see how my interest, my talent, and even basketball could be used for the gospel. You fast forward now 20 years later, 2019, this was an unbelievable trip as my wife, 2 of my boys, and my current basketball team I was coaching at the time went to Barcelona, Spain. And now, instead of a player, I'm a coach. I'm bringing my team. My wife comes, my kids come. Unbelievable memories, just again, using basketball, but then to share the gospel with, of course, the kids, visiting orphanages. And so when we talk about missions, man, I get excited, I get passionate, and God's allowed me to experience some awesome memories. So what about you, Chad?
Man, so I'm going back. So last year I was able to go out of the country for the first time. That was life-changing for sure. But top memory for me would have been maybe 2002, 2003. Back in high school, we went to an Indian reservation up in North Dakota. And they had a big kind of hip-hop culture, MTV era. And so our whole missions was we'd show up at 7 or 8 at night at the basketball court and just play pickup basketball, trying to do ministry that way. But the first night that we arrived there, we go get dinner at like a YMCA and come back to the church where we were staying at. And we were surprised to see a broken glass and a rock thrown through the window. And just vividly remember everybody being a little afraid, like, oh my goodness, safety, this and that. And one of my buddies just got his big smile and picked up the rock in celebration and saying, yes, yeah, we're being persecuted. To think about in the United States, there's not a whole lot of persecution, but that was a memory that stuck with me, to just praise God like Paul would have been in the prisons for the persecutions. But yeah, that was my memory from the missions trip.
Jim, Chad and I also got persecuted every time we went to play at Coastal Carolina during our college years. Felt like it was they were taking it personal to us there.
Love it. And I love Chad, our tennis guy, using basketball, man. All right.
Yes. No, we could play some pickup hang, but no, that's just for the coaches out there listening. We just want to encourage you guys, if you have a chance to go on a missions trip, take the leap. And we know there's these things that sometimes hold us back. I know I've had these fears, or maybe running from what God might be calling me to do. But guys, why, just air it out? Like, why do you think people don't go on missions trips? What's holding them back?
I think of 2 F's come to mind. I think of fear and finances. I think fear just creeps in, fear of the unknown, fear of maybe not having all the details, fear of traveling, fear, you fill in the blank, man. God does not give us that spirit of fear, but I know that's a reality. You got to be cautious, where God may be leading you. So, but then also finances, it takes money to get these things done. I realize that. I think our coaches realize that, but don't let that be the hurdle or the stumbling block, because it's easy to just say, oh, can't do it, can't afford it. Well, did you try? Did you pray about it? Did you seek out? Did you reach out to people that might have connections? And I know in my life, every time that I felt God was leading me on a trip, the funds came through. And that was, we're called to do our part. And when we do our part, man, God does way more. And so don't let fear hold you back. Don't let the finances hold you back.
Yeah, I think sometimes we're scared of just sharing our story, right? I think we're just afraid that we're not going to connect, that people may judge us, right? But that God just asks us to show up, right? I have the tattoo in my arm with a 2 and a 5 in Hebrew, right? To just remind me that with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread, God fed 5,000. And he doesn't ask us to go feed 5,000. He asks us to just bring him the fish and the bread. And sometimes that's just signing up for a mission trip, right? And then seeing the funds come through. Sometimes it's just bringing your gifts and just being, hey, here I am, do what you will with my gifts. And I think sometimes we're just so scared of, well, I've lived. And I think sometimes our guests, right, when we ask them about their testimony, they're like, well, my life has been great. That's still a testimony, right? That's a testimony to the grace of God that your life has been pretty normal. But I think everybody can connect to some part of our stories if we're willing to share and be bold about it.
That's good. One more fear that I'd add in as I was thinking through my 7 years as a college coach was like, think about 2 weeks out of the summer or 1 week out of the summer, like the world is going to fall apart if I take a vacation that long or take a break from working, And so I think number one is getting that time off, whether it's AD or whoever, but planning ahead so that you can have some space to go. And yeah, I feel like those little shakeups are really where we see God speak, like getting out of the normal mundane. Every Monday I'm here, every Monday I'm here, and all of a sudden, boom, you're in this new place. Maybe you don't speak a language, you're thrown in the deep end. And I feel like that's when we look back on our faith journeys, like that's where I heard from the Lord, or I got this big nudge or calling on my life. So that's good. You guys have anything else to add out of the fears?
I think just the fear of being uncomfortable, of course. And, I use the phrase all the time, get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because I know in my life when I'm comfortable, it's just easy for me. I just go through the motions and I can do it with my own strength, either gifts and talents. But when I'm uncomfortable, those are times I'm on my knees. God, I'm uncomfortable. This is hard. And a lot of times we as coaches, we like easy. Easier riding my bike downhill than going uphill. But I'll tell you what, the view's pretty up top, and so do the hard things, get uncomfortable. And I think that's one of the fears, is just fear of being uncomfortable.
I love that, Jim.
For sure.
Love that. Take that bike ride up the hill. All right, you just convinced me. You convinced me. I'm going now, Jim.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start broad here first, then we can narrow into some more practical tips. But just thinking through, like Jesus gives in Matthew 28, just the Great Commission, and it's throughout. Jesus talking about, as I have been sent, I am sending you. And and Luke's writing into Acts, like go into all the world and Jerusalem, Judea, all the earth. So like these commands are there, but how do you guys see how can sports play a role in that Great Commission?
I think sports is the great unifier, right, in any country, right? I remember coming from Brazil. I remember when Brazil went to Haiti in the middle of the Civil War in Haiti, and the country just stopped to watch Ronaldinho play for 2 hours. Like everybody the war stopped just to watch sports happen. And so I think sometimes we underestimate. I think sometimes we think, oh, sports is just sports entertainment, but no, I think if you look at it like that's your mission field, using sports, all 3 of us have seen that even inside this own podcast. I think we can connect better. And then when you connect, then they're more willing to share as well. So I think that's a great gateway, right, into be able to share the gospel is sports and food. Who doesn't like food,
True.
I love, Gian, you used the term unifier and being able to connect sports and music, universal language, wherever you go. And in my life, being in Hungary, going to Argentina, going to Spain, then most recently Panama and the country, not Panama City. I'm down in Fort Lauderdale area, so not Panama City, but the country Panama. You know, we were able to use basketball, and you take out this round object and you go to a court, you go to a gym, people come, people show up, whether it be soccer, whether it be, you know, football, volleyball. Sports is that connecting piece. And for me, earlier in my kind of, I guess, late teens, I just automatically thought a missions trip was, you know, going down the, you know, remote tribes of Africa and, you know, not eating for 7 days and staying in a mud hut. And just, that was my view of missions. And then all of a sudden it's like, no, missions, and we'll talk about it, can be in my own house, my own backyard, my team, but I could go to another country and do it. And it's just sharing the gospel. That's missions. And when Christ calls us to go, we go. And for me, it's using basketball. And it's amazing how, you know, that platform of athletics can be used to then share Christ. And I've known when we compete and we play and we are excellent, and whether we lead a clinic, bring a team, and they respect us, they respect the Americans, and they listen to what we have to say. And so we share basketball because that's, like Gian said, the connective piece, but then we know why we're there. And it's to share more than basketball. It's to share more than sports. It's to share Christ. And there's nothing like it. Nothing like it.
Yeah, that's really good, Jim. And just echoing that like a coach in the United States going outside of the United States is really idolized and looked up to, as far as I've seen so far, that like they're just hungry for great quality coaches. And so that's just a perfect bridge to say, hey, I'm here to help you with sport, but there's something more important. That's a relationship with Jesus Christ. But I just thinking through practically, we got Gian is getting ready to go on his first missions trip. So I'm going to throw it back to Jim. Do you have a practical tip for somebody that's getting ready to launch and getting ready to go on a mission trip?
Help me, Jim.
More you're listening, taking notes. Well, I think more than practical, I think what we tend to do, or less what I tend to do, is I get excited and I skip a crucial process and part, and that's prayer. I think that's the first and most important thing, is just to pray. Make sure it's what God is calling and wanting you to do, rather than this is what I want to do. And when that starts lining up, I know for my trips, when I really bathed it in prayer with my church, my family, the people that I shared that dream and vision, why we want to do it. Now I have multiple people praying. Doors just slammed open, or they slammed shut. I mean, they burst open or slammed shut. And I just seen door and door open. That's when I know God's really involved. So I definitely say, you know, don't skip that prayer process. But then number two, I think it's maybe researching a little bit, who can you partner with? Sometimes as coaches, we like to think independently. There could be someone out there that's made this trip before, and then you pick their brain. We're taking a trip. Why don't you partner up with us? Or you just find out, you educate yourself a little bit more about, you know, where you're going, what you're going to be doing. And then I just kind of throw in, you know, as you're praying, just the timing's got to be right. And I had to say no several times to different missions trips because the timing wasn't right in my family. And so I think God honored that when the time was right to really be all in and engaged. And I think just 4 years ago, we went over spring break and I had like 16 people sacrifice their spring break. And for me, I'm just throwing this out, it was during March Madness basketball. And I could think about the time I had to say, I got to give this over to God. This is more important. So I didn't watch games during those 10 days. And I think God just says, okay, when the timing's right, I'm gonna make this work and I'm gonna use you. And we just got to be obedient. And so those are some things that come to mind.
Yeah, it's really good. That's really good. The two pieces of advice that I was given right before we went to Asia last year was just limit expectations. Just that thought on like I want so much spiritual fruit or all these people to come to know Christ. Like, these are my goals, and if I'm charging forward with it, versus like, no, let's just see what God does. And the second piece of advice was just to be present with people, and taking in the sights, the sounds, the smells of these different places, and just kind of really being right where you're at in that moment. But those were two pieces of advice that I was given that I really appreciated. But Gian, is there anything that they've prepped you on that you think has been helpful to prepare you?
I think to just continue to get your heart right, so that you know that you're going for the right motivation, right? That you're there to serve the Lord and not yourselves. I think sometimes our human nature kicks in, and it's like, wow, I'm going there. Am I cool? Aren't I cool for going there instead of just going to New Orleans or whatever, And I think sometimes we can get to that when I say, hey, I'm going to Mozambique. Most people are like, where's that? And then they're just amazed to know that it takes 2 days to get there, But at the same time, I think getting your heart right before you leave, so that when you're there, you can be present and you can still influence others for the gospel, instead of just thinking, oh man, I can't wait to take a picture with this little kid so I can post it on social media and people can like it and I can gain more followers and look cool. I think that happened a little bit with the Asbury revival. I think a few Christian public figures went out just to take pictures to say that they were there, instead of just letting it be and just let those kids have their moment.
That's so good, Gene. I'm going to jump in real fast. How you said, get your heart right. And of course, that comes with that prayer before, because even in a missions trip, unfortunately, that pride can get in, and the sin of, look what I'm doing, people, look where I'm going. And it's like, whoa, watch out. And then if you do truly make it about serving, we all go into the idea of like, hey, we're going on a mission trip and we're going to go change that little community. And before you know it, if you have that mindset of serving, we all know who comes back changed. Bing, me, my group, we come back changed. And just to pivot, I'm going to throw this out. As I learned on our most recent trip, you better be flexible. You better be flexible, because we'll have this schedule. 8 o'clock, we're doing this. 9:30, we're doing this. 10:30, okay, I got to meet them. And all of a sudden, no, we're not doing that at 8 o'clock because we got something else planned and they forgot to tell it. Okay, we roll with it. And I can remember telling the kids, okay, we had this game scheduled at 4, but the other team, they may have something else in mind, or we're going to do this clinic at 2, but nope, they didn't have the gym till 5. So you better be flexible. And I'm learning. That's something God's teaching me with my A-type personality and my list and my goal. Be flexible. And I want to throw this out. I'm talking a lot, but let me throw this one out. I didn't really see the value of this in my first missions trips. And it sounds selfish. And I want it to come out the right way, because we know why we're going to serve. But if you're there for a good, let's say, week and a half, and you're in that 10-day, it's okay to have one day that you're not serving. And I say that the right way. You're actually doing maybe something with your group, that you're sightseeing, you're going out to eat, you're doing it, you're experiencing that culture. And I don't feel bad saying that, because when we did that in Spain, I was like, okay, we're doing this on this day, that missions project, we're going to play that game. And the leader said, hey, take one day for your group, go see this and go out to eat. And that was one of our best days that we connected. And it was kind of in the middle. Then the rest of the trip, man, it just fired us up more. Like, we connected as a group. We got to do some things. And I just throw that out there, Coach. If you're, taking a 7 to 10 day, to have that, maybe that one day for just you and your group.
That's really good. That's really good advice, Jim. And one more to keep adding on there was at AI, they did a great job at debriefing. Think about the end of your mission trip. I think it's wise to think through that on how are you going to return back to the United States. And we had about a day. We went kayaking. They did a great reflection time on where we saw God work and what we're hoping to do once we come back home. And thought that was super helpful. And I'm going to piggyback back off both of what you guys said about the pride of the missions trip. While I was in Asia, the Lord kind of spoke to me, gave me this picture of hide and seek versus show and tell. Just these little kid games that we have, show and tell. I got 100 pictures that I took there, and like I'm be super excited to sit down and show you guys. I was like, is that my motivation, is to show people what we did, or just that hide and seek? Think I'm hiding a humility, a meekness on it. Nobody has to know. I'm just serving the Lord here.
That's good.
The last little topic that we just wanted to hit on just to end, because 90%, 95% of coaches aren't going on a missions trip this summer, right? Is just thinking about how we serve the Lord, how it's missions here in our current job. And even don't hold me to this quote, but I heard maybe like 1900s or so, 70% of the missionaries were coming from Europe or USA, North America, and going. 30% would be more Africa, Asia. And they said there's this flip right now where it's more 70-30 the other way. Asia, Africa are the ones sending. There's missionaries coming here to the United States. So we need the light. We need the gospel to be preached here in the US. But man, when you guys were coaching, how did you make this your mission field? How did you dig in right where you were planted?
I think, I've been able to coach at Liberty for 10 years, where it is a Christian university and you have all these resources, right? And it almost feels a little too much, because they go to convocation, they listen to speakers, they're surrounded by Christianity all the time. And we had some players that were not Christians when they arrived, right? And the first few years I was like, man, I can't talk about it with my players because I'm just going to lose them, because they're just getting so much information about Christianity and they're just getting almost just hit over the head all the time with Christianity. And I feel like they need an escape, and tennis was that escape. And then I just felt convicted. I was like, no, you are actually probably the one that has the most influence in them. All the other ones might be just going over their head, but you're the one who actually has a connection with them, right? They actually signed up to be with you. And so your message is much more important than the hundreds that they're getting bombarded with on a daily basis. So that was convicting on my side, to just be more intentional with that.
I remember hearing this thought, when you love your athletes as players, it's what they can do for you. When you love them as people, it's what you can do for them. And earlier in my career, I can always say I love my athletes. I really did. But I think I loved them as what they could do for me. Give me the win, get us to next level, get me my next promotion. And the shift came, later than earlier, where I was really loving them as people. And it just made me think of, people ask me all the time, Jim, do you miss it? I was a high school coach for 25 plus years. Jim, do you miss it? My answer is always the same: yes and no. There's parts of the game that I do miss, and then there's parts of the game I do not miss. But what I miss the most is the relationships. I miss the kids. And for me, in sharing the gospel, there's needs to be a relationship. The kids don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And the kids and players that I had started seeing me caring about them, whether it be coming over to our house for a meal. My wife did an awesome job on Wednesdays. We fed some of our kids, to picking them up, giving them a ride home, playing in an open gym, inviting them into the office. And I really miss those relationships. And I pray for divine appointments. And I didn't know what those divine appointments were in my 20s and 30s. Now I'm starting to realize that's a divine appointment. And a lot of times I don't even know it's really in the moment. It's almost like after. And so I pray for those. And when I pray for those, God gives them to me. And I encourage you, coach, pray for those divine appointments. But one thing and I'll end with this, we incorporated as I became a varsity coach, in 2005, I did lunch devotions, and we called it Fuel, Fuel. And we were just filling them up physically with food and fuel, but then we took the time spiritually to pour into their lives, and whether it be a devotion, a challenge, prayer time. And I'll be honest, that's probably what I missed the most. It was off the court. It was in the classroom. It was in the library, hanging out, cracking on each other, messing around, and then having that time, the last 10 minutes, to really invest in their lives spiritually. So that turned into my mission field right there at that lunchtime.
I love that. I love that, Jim, man. That's really good. And I feel like we could do a whole episode on how to make the current job your mission field. And for me, just two quick things is, number one, just praying for your student athletes. Like, our heart's gonna be drawn towards them. Mark Batterson's book, Walking Circles, like, if you can get to practice early, just walk a couple laps around that gym or that court and just pray over the practice. Invite God into that space. And I think at the end of the Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, he talks about the screw tape letters, on how this fake, like, pretty much the devil's top tactic is to disrupt the moment from us. Like, if we can just not be in the moment, then we're not living out God's calling from our life. So I feel like for you, coach, out there, just to be content, bloom where you're planted, embrace the moment, embrace the knucklehead on your team, embrace the drama queen, just embrace the moment that you're in. And I feel like then these divine appointments that Jim's talking about will be prepared and ready to share. But we just want to end this time in prayer. By the time that we air this, Gian's going to be in Brazil, helping out his father, and just invite you all to pray. I'm just going to call it. Jim, are you willing to just pray us out?
Of course. Be glad to. God, we pause. We thank you for an incredible conversation. We thank you for the power of the Great Commission to go. And we thank you for this time that we can share. And again, our role is just to encourage these coaches that are listening. We're grateful for them taking the time. And if any one of them are out there just considering, debating, wrestling with this idea of missions, whether it be traveling overseas, whether it be a local trip in their state, neighborhood, whether it be in their own program, their own family, Lord, that we will just be faithful. We will be obedient. We know that fear does creep in. We know that there's a lot of logistics with finances and timing, and God, that we can just maybe be a source of encouragement, that they will make this a priority, because as we know, it's not necessarily changing those that you called us, although it could be. It's ultimately changing us, and it's changing us, transforming us into the person you've called us to be. And Lord, I just want to pause and pray for Gian's dad, Lafa. I pray for his health. Thank you for Gian being willing to go over there and just connect and be with his family. So pray for him as we take this time to just pray, and thank you for who you are first, what you do second, and we're grateful for this time. In your name, amen.